Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me all over the place, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube at Hawk Blogger. And today, you find me on this Blue Friday with Dave Boling and Mike Sando. Apologies, I was getting echoes and I just figured out why. That is now solved. As we talk about a just fantastic football game between the Los Angeles Rams and the Seattle Seahawks, both at 7-2. And man, there's no other two people I'd rather talk about it with than our guys here. Dave, man, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
Doing great and really looking forward to this game. This is why you love football. I mean, especially if you follow a team, you cover a team. It's so much fun when you can capture the sense that they are on the rise. Every game is a little bit of a journey of discovery. Who's going to be the guy this week? I wouldn't have thought it was going to be Tyrese Knight and DeMarcus Lawrence but then you're going to get JSN and you're going to get somebody doing something fantastic. And I think this is an obvious point, but I think this is the biggest game in Mike Macdonald's career. And I think this, we saw him last year as the defensive whiz kid, and he was very convincing. This year, it feels to me that he's now more of a full service head coach, a motivator, a leader, an administrator, and all that. And if he can go down there and spank these guys, maybe that puts him up to the next step in his progress. Fun.
Oh, that is a great opening salvo. Mike Sando of The Athletic. Man, we were having this debate on one of my shows this week about if the Seahawks were to win this game, what's the last game that would be a comparable win to this? And we were going back to like was it the Eagles playoff win? But I don't know, like what would be the one that really compares?
Yeah, I was thinking to myself, when's the last time that the Seahawks were a top 5 team in the league that wasn't in decline? That the group's best days weren't behind them. I think that's what I feel. Is it's not just having a big game or not just being a good team, but like this is a team that feels like it's not even what it's going to be yet, and it's good. So there's that hope, that promise of it's still in the early stages of something that could be great. And I don't think we've had that feeling really since for the Seahawks, probably since 2012, wouldn't you say?
After that Falcons loss in the playoffs, where it was just like everybody coming off that field was like, I can't wait to get back to training camp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think they've had bigger games since then, obviously Super Bowls and stuff, but I just feel like that's the comp because because of where the team's at and where it could go, not where it's been, where it could go.
Yeah. Yeah. And you wrote about this in your Pick Six column in terms of both of these teams, the Rams and the Seahawks, and the changes in their, at least the Athletics playoff predictor, Super Bowl predictor. And these are two of the teams that have had the biggest change from preseason to now. When you look at both these teams, I mean, the Rams were kind of a team that people did expect this from. Seahawks were not. So, how do you see these two teams, Mike?
I see the Rams as it was only a question of whether Stafford was going to be healthy. And so now that he's healthy, he's Stafford and he's doing great. So that's less of a mystery to me. I think with the Seahawks, I think that they are a good team a better team throughout their roster than most teams. Whereas, I think like the Seahawks defensive front is a bunch of guys and they almost blend together. Sure, you can say Leonard Williams is a star or whatever, but people don't even really talk about Byron Murphy or some of these other guys. So I think Seattle has waves throughout its roster, and that is, whether it's look at their special teams. I think that's one area where you see the strength of your roster. And the Rams have always been kind of maybe a little bit top heavier, or they're going cheap in certain areas, and then they aren't as good in special teams, right? I think Seattle has the flavor of of a fuller, deeper roster, which also compares to the early Pete Carroll days with John Schneider, in the image of a little bit different coach than Sean McVay. I think, the Rams have, over their tenure, derived their toughness through their offensive line or whatever. But I think the Seahawks are deriving their toughness through the construction of their roster and the way they want to play schematically. And I think that's a pretty cool thing that is hard to accomplish with an offensive play calling head coach, unless you're able to get a Brian Flores or a Jim Schwartz, one of those guys who's so strong as a D coordinator that you can gain your identity through the rest of your roster through him. Because I think you don't see that with a lot of the offensive-minded head coaches. So that's, to me, what Seattle has that's a little bit different.
I think the roster building, what's been done here, never more apparent than the last couple of games. The Nehemiah Pritchett play. I mean, that reminded me of when Cam punched the ball out of Calvin Johnson at the goal line. Earl was where they used to defend every blade of grass. And what you're seeing is this synergy, particularly on defense, where they are kind of like a Cam and an Earl and Richard. They would race each other to make the big play.
Yep.
And that means people are rallying to the ball. That's how you get that DeMarcus Lawrence two fumble recoveries for touchdown. They're getting to the ball. There was one play was a short, like about a 4-yard pass to Dortch. And by the time they brought him down, there were 10 Seahawks in the frame from the end zone camera. It was just and that's how you get those loose balls. And the development of the roster, I'm watching Drake Thomas and I saw him in practice and I go, that guy is an NFL linebacker? He's sensational. And I start thinking of non-prototypical inside linebackers. And I came up with another Thomas. I'm thinking Zach Thomas.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's kind of how this guy looks. He's like a panther going after running backs.
Yeah,
that's just spectacular. And then the way Knight has shown up, and all those guys. Job had done some similar things.
Hey,
not guys you're expecting. So
how about a month ago when you're thinking, God, they can't have a Takata out there. This guy, this is a real weakness, and now he's making plays.
There's a
half a dozen
of the conversation I had with Matt Hasselback a few weeks ago about their Super Bowl year in 2005. That you had unsung players have great years. Like Mike Holmgren used to talk about, to have great seasons, you have to have your best players play their best, and you have to have other players have career years. And, you're talking about Joe Jaravicius leading them in touchdown passes. Ryan Hannum was a great blocker that nobody would ever remember. Like, there was a lot of guys that played key roles. Mac Strong. Like, there's a lot of guys that played key roles for that team.
Marquez Manuel Marquez.
Marquez.
Jordan Babineau, right? Babineau had a big run there.
Babineau had a great name. But and then in the end, they ended up with nobody to play cornerback.
They did not have the depth.
It was next man up until there were no more next men, and that kind of killed them. But up until that point, it was exactly what was going on.
Well, and this isn't the first time that Mike Macdonald has done this, by the way. You guys may remember the name Geno Stone. You may not. In Baltimore, when last year that Mike was there, Geno Stone came in, led them in interceptions, signed a big free agent deal at safety with the Bengals, and they realized that he turned back into a pumpkin. And there was a number of guys on that Ravens team. Kyle Van Noy was all of a sudden a good pass rusher again, and he was able to get the most out of his players, and that is a really good sign of not just what's going on this year, but the idea that you're probably going to have a roster maximizer as your head coach for years to come. And I gotta tell you guys, I've done, as you're not surprised, I've been very, very deep in looking at this matchup from all sides. And I have a ton of respect for the Rams. I think they are very, very good. They're exceptionally coached on both sides of the ball. And yet, the more time I've spent in and around the Seahawks this week and looked at this matchup, I think they won't say it. They won't want to say it. I think they secretly feel very good about their opportunity in this game, to the point where the vibes I'm getting are, I'm not saying it's like the Super Bowl against the Broncos and that they're going to win 43-8, but the same kind of feeling of, I think they feel like they know something that nobody else knows and they're about to share it on Sunday. And
turnover differential, when you look at your tail of the tape, the turnover differential is one real significant point. And you look at the Seahawks' 2 losses, crazy turnovers in the last minute, they could very well be 9-0. And it's hard to blame Sam Darnold because they were kind of goofy off one guy's helmet, and then the tackle gets pushed back into him. And so those are the things you can't predict, and numerically, statistically, it's hard to tell. You can get those maybe if they happen in the first quarter, then it's not as big a deal. You've got time, but you get that in the last minute, and you're doing it. I'm very reluctant to say they've got to prove they can close because they have, but those at times it has cost them.
Hey, and you've done a great job, Brian, of, I think you were the first one I saw have the best point differential in team history or whatever through this amount, right? 103 or whatever it is.
Yep.
But Dave, when you mentioned those turnovers, I just pulled up on my screen this team is the 3rd worst points off turnover margin of any Seahawks team through 9 games since 2000.
Yeah, it's awful.
So they're minus 17 in points off turnover margin. They've scored 34. The other team scored 51. Well, and that's with the best. That's for the team with the best point differential in the history of the franchise, Brian.
Yeah,
through 9 games. So think of that. It's usually if they had the by far best points off turnover margin, you would be saying this isn't sustainable because the turnovers dry up. Ask the Jacksonville Jaguars with their defense that had all these turnovers. Then when they don't get the turnovers, they can't win. So this is a team. I use the term, how much slack in the rope is there? And what I mean by that is like how much is untapped here actually, as opposed to if the rope is as stretched out as it can get right now, that's all as good as you can be. But when your point differential off of turnovers is towards the bad end of what a team would do, that means you have a lot of capacity to get better.
Yeah, the fuse on the bomb is really
well, it's a fantastic point because they have the second most turnovers in the NFL, period. Like they've turned the ball over a lot. Now, most of those have come in the second half when they're ahead, and it hasn't really mattered. So there's 2 ways to kind of look at that. Either this is a week against the Rams team that is very good at taking the ball away, in particular, forcing fumbles. Nate Landman, their linebacker, has forced the most fumbles in the NFL. He's punching out footballs all the time. And maybe this is the game that it gets them. On the other hand, they've only had 1 game all season where they didn't turn the ball over, the Seahawks. That was against Jacksonville, as a matter of fact. And if the Seahawks do protect the football this week, I don't know that there's a great opportunity to beat this team if they're not beating themselves. And so even when they are beating themselves, they have been in control against the Texans and against the Cardinals last week.
I do think that, there's been a lot of focus on the defensive lines in this game. I think they're both going to have their wins. It wouldn't surprise me at all if each quarterback had an interception. Wouldn't that be about what you'd expect?
Well, Matt Stafford has some of the best turnover luck you will ever see. Parking karma, that concept where you just, the parking spot opens up for you that you need and, right next to where you want to be. He has turnover karma, man. Like that guy throws the ball. He threw it against the 49ers right before half. He threw it right to Renardo Green. It hit him in the stomach and he dropped it. But if you look over not just this year, but the past few years, Matt Stafford has as high or higher of a turnover-worthy play rate as Sam Darnold. nobody would know that because the people seem to catch Sam Darnold has 6 turnover-worthy throws this year. He has 6 interceptions. That is just never the case with Matt Stafford. So yeah, I do think that could happen, but I don't.
Well,
I don't love the
doesn't
Rams
karma
secondary
always
the way I love
turn
the
around?
Seahawks.
Doesn't it always balance out in the end? So that Darnold is probably really due a few.
You'd hope. You'd think. Well, at least I would hope. You'd think. So
here's I think one of the things going into this game, the last couple games, they're running the ball. They've focused on it, and they're better at it. The scheme looks good. I think they're doing things they should be doing. I think that is the puzzle piece that hasn't quite fit yet. Now, they only give up 10 sacks in 9 games. Pretty good. But they ran for 200 yards last week. Okay, it's the Cardinals, and, they got some good players on there. I think that could be that piece when the tumblers click in on the lock opens once they can start running the ball.
Hey, you were mentioning the PFF stuff. So Stafford and Darnold are their 2 highest grade passers. Their turnover-worthy play rate is the same. And of the stats that PFF does, I do kind of like the big-time throw percentage and the turnover-worthy play. I think those are good sort of references if there's an extreme. So they're both really low in the turnover-worthy play. I think they're both towards the bottom of the league at 2.3%. Darnold actually has a higher percentage of the big-time throws, which is saying something because that's Stafford's got a better throwing ability probably than anybody in the league. So
yeah, I do feel like, not to turn this into a stat debate, I do feel like PFF's big time throw number is less interesting to me because it can be misleading. Stafford can do a no look throw to a wide open player that wouldn't count as a big time throw because it's not a tight window somewhere near the player.
I got you.
I also, there's guys that have a lot of big time throws, and it's like, well, that's because they're throwing into tight coverage all the time, and that's not necessarily like Geno Smith had always a high big time throw rate, but some of those big time throws came very close to being turnovers, and a lot of them did.
He's second to the lowest this year in big time throws.
But he's another topic for another day. But these are 2 fantastic quarterbacks, and guys, I mean, you can't talk about this game without talking about. You mentioned the 10 sacks that Sam Darnold has taken this year. He took 9 sacks the last time he faced the Rams. So Dave, starting with you, I mean, I have to admit, I looked at I watched that game last year, the playoff game. I heard Dan Orlovsky and Nate Tice, Mike Tice's kid, say like, everyone that's saying this was on Sam Darnold, you're crazy. This was all this other stuff. And I was like, come on, guys. Like, I watched that game. That was pretty bad. I went back. I watched every sack yesterday, and my goodness, there was nobody open. Kevin O'Connell had no outlets. There was like no dump off options. Everybody was covered. There was a couple plays where it definitely was Sam Darnold, but like, you guys know, narratives make such a big deal, and Sam Darnold just took the entire responsibility for that. I'm curious your thoughts about how those things play out.
One, I think this team is playing with such confidence, Darnold included. That touchdown to JSN, when one guy is like hanging on his hip and the other guy is in his face, that pass was sensational. A number of times in the last couple of weeks where he has been flushed and had to buy time, he resets his feet. He gets turned around. He really has a good, maybe he's not as quick as some guys. He really has the capacity to find space to reset and deliver the ball so that all the mechanics are proper. And that keeps you from making the overthrows. And I think that sort of thing, he is really playing well. And if you look at his leadership, looking at him as a quarterback rather than just a passer, I think he's pretty sharp. I think these guys are buying into him. And I think that's a thing that's happening when you look at some of the quotes of the defensive guys this week. Everybody is really confident with the plays, the schemes, the preparation to going in there. And now the one thing you're saying, you got a vibe from the headquarters. That's a real thing. And when guys come up and they start talking about, Leonard was saying, hey, we're 11 guys, and it's connected by a string. It's like the big amoeba. It changes shape, but it doesn't lose contact. And that's a really big thing. And I think the offense is having that too. And then you see guys like Holani coming in. You see Horton making big catches. You see Kupp, who just coming off the hamstring. That was a tremendous play. The design on that, Darnold's adaptation, delivering the ball, and then everybody heading downfield. They're clicking. That team is clicking, and a lot of it is up here. And we talked about. I remember we're sitting here. I hope I'm not going into your time here, Mike. But we were talking about
a cappuccino here. You continue. No,
we were talking about Anthony Bradford a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, we were.
And you ask, what do you do if the guard's not? And I said he's sometimes he's standing around. He's like a guy waiting for a bus, looking around. And I said, well, if you don't have a guy to plug in and you can't move anybody, you got to get in his ear and tell him, don't come back to the huddle until you knock somebody down. And it looks like his play recently, I would say, is a product of really good coaching. He's got a better, you see the attitude alone, aside from technique and stuff and the contact, and playing to the whistle more. He just knows where he's going, and it has made, I think, a pretty significant difference in the Hawks offense. Good coaching, confidence. These people are in control of this ship.
I think that a few things off there. First, Dave, at one point you said that's a real thing, and I just had to chuckle because we adopt the language of the coaches. That was a Holmgrenism every day. That's a real thing,
We just got to go back and roll up our sleeves. And I remember one time,
a real thing did. I was
Holmgren's going to be showing up to press conferences in tank tops.
Yeah, Holmgren. But your initial question was about Darnold, and I think the thing I've been impressed with is he has not been somebody who has spiraled. I do feel like he sometimes risks the football. I do feel like sometimes he's gonna, that safety in the Houston game. There's a couple times where you go, but what I've noticed is like he comes back and makes a great play after that. Usually, that's the thing that I think you need from your quarterback is you're gonna have some bad plays, but you can't spiral and be the reason you lose the game, right? And I feel like he's done a really good job of that. The other thing you said, Dave, about the coaching staff, I think we could always, if you and I, were to go back on all the coaching staffs that we've covered, we could name a weak link. You and I could, just from being around the teams, and you would know this coach here actually, they need to do better. They need to do better than certain guys. There's been weaknesses as a defensive coordinator, as offensive line coaches. And I feel like, and some of this is watching the game, some of this is talking to people over there too. I don't think they have that. Like I don't think there's one area of the coaching staff that is a weak link in the chain. Mm-hmm. And I think that's unusual for most staffs. I do.
As we pointed out so many times, and it happened to Holmgren and it happened to Pete. When you have success, people come and get your assistance, and it can't happen. You remember Mike toward the end, they were getting guys plugging them in at defensive coordinator, and the brain drain that follows success is another very real thing. You can't just plug in new guys and understand what it is you want. You look at the Hawks last year with offensive coordinator. They did not mesh.
And remember when they got Holmgren, his staff he had already lost his staff in Green Bay a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So you were
all of them got head coaching jobs.
You were already getting fourth generation Holmgren staff, and by the end, it's the eighth generation Holmgren. And their first year, Mike Sherman leaves, offensive
And
coordinator.
Fritz Shermer,
and Fritz dies.
And Fritz Shermer dies. So they had a lot of staff issues. They were always trying to get the staff right. And I feel like right now, after the changes they made last offseason, I don't feel that. No one's even talking about Harbaugh, their special teams coach.
It's so true.
I think he might be really good.
He has done an exceptional job, and
Harbaugh,
it's an underrated part of the Pete Carroll early years, where he inherited. To his credit, he chose to keep them, but he kept Gus Bradley and he kept Dan Quinn, that were from the previous staff. And then Dan Quinn left to University of Florida, if you remember that. And then he came back for what was the Super Bowl run, and then he was gone again. Dan Quinn, I know he's having a challenging time this year in Washington, but I don't think there's any question of how good of a coach he is or how hard his players play for him. So, yeah, I think Pete Carroll was chasing a decent staff for the last 10 years of his career in Seattle. And who knows how good this staff is relative to what it'll be for Mike Macdonald. But folks, we've got Dave Boling of the Spokesman Review and Mike Sando of The Athletic with us today as we talk about the Seahawks versus Rams game. Make sure you give us a like and subscribe wherever you are. I got to ask you guys, the thing that nobody is really considering as a possibility is, you remember 2012. We talked about it already, right? We talked about the end of 2012, but the way that kind of gained momentum was a 58-0 win against the Cardinals, a 50-17 win in Toronto against the Bills, and then they faced their biggest division rival at home, and they won 42-13 against the 49ers, and that division was just different after that game. That didn't mean that they had other challenges with San Francisco, but it changed the dynamic.
Yeah.
What happens for Sam Darnold? What happens for Mike Macdonald? What happens for this team if they not only win this game, but they win it convincingly? What happens to the perception of this team, and what happens to their potential? And Mike, I'll start with you on that one.
I think Darnold needs it nationally because there are a number of people, and I go back and forth with them in the league, who are like, I want to see him win a big game. It doesn't mean they're not saying he's not good this year, but this is because of the 9-sack game, because of the perception, real or imagined or exaggerated or whatever, that Darnold melted down late last season, right? He's had to live with that. That's maybe that may be why he's available. If they'd had good games in the playoffs, who knows? Maybe the Vikings keep him, right? If they'd gone to the championship game or reached the Super Bowl, they probably keep him. So that is a huge still thing in the back of people's minds that made them reluctant to be all in on Seattle signing him, right? Those last two games really, really worried me. We saw the old Darnold. So I think that if he vanquishes that, and has a big game, or they win big, or even if they just win and he plays well, I think a lot of that kind of goes away for him. So I would imagine for him, it's not that I don't think he's all wrapped up in it. I think he and the team knows what they've got. I think if they lose the game and he has 2 picks, I don't think they're going to be rattled. But I think that for a national perception wise, for him, it would be huge to have a big game, to go toe to toe with Stafford, win the game, and look great. I think it would really change how people view him. I think people are already viewing Mike Macdonald in a good light, but the point that we've made is, I don't think a lot of the people around the league have been as attuned to the idea of the NFC West and how McVay and Shanahan have. McVay and Shanahan are seen as national figures nationally. It's not really seen as an NFC West thing. Mm-hmm. And so I think that what we've been looking for is, okay, Mike Macdonald, can he play chess with these guys and win some of them? And I think that, Macdonald in relation to those two guys is probably not something that people look at nationally because they don't really think about the division. But I think that this could come into their consciousness if he's got answers against these guys and, wins the games.
I think it was kind of what I said at the start. This is Mike Macdonald's biggest game.
Yeah.
And he was good this week saying, well, this is a situation we haven't been in before. And my thought is if you plugged him into a polygraph, he'd be going, hell yes, this is big. If I can beat those guys and can go you know, you got McVay, who was the offensive mastermind. You get the even younger defensive mastermind. And if you can go down there, pull a win, especially they're kind of banged up. Everybody's banged up, but the Hawks have got some people they're having to fill in. And I don't know how much these guys from week to week really notice how they're recognized nationally. I don't think they really spend a lot of time. What you see is this togetherness, the connectedness, you know, and I kind of like I'm really liking Macdonald. I'm really enjoying him. He's getting a little more personality. You know, he says when asking about Eamon Wari and are there things we can do with him and find, you know, chase the edge with this guy. And you know, how much time do you spend on that? Is it worth what they have to do to counter that? You know, and he said, is the juice worth the squeeze? And I kind of like that. You know, are you going to get enough potential product from the effort there? And I think you know, when he got in, everybody was saying, hey, this guy's a genius. This guy's the smartest guy in the room. And now he is on the verge of becoming a head coach of note. And I think this is a game that can be that springboard. And that's important to his career. It doesn't mean anything nationally. It certainly means something in the standings.
So I will let you get out of here in just a minute, Mike. I'm sure you've got stuff to do, and Dave as well. Related to this last topic, though, and then one more quick thing is we've all played sports, we've watched sports, and there's this thing that I just believe in, which is you can have a lot of confidence, you can be playing well, but there's this belief quotient. It's intangible, where you tackle something, you accomplish something that you know increases that belief that you are every bit of what you need to be the best team or the best player. I feel like this is one of those games where Sam Darnold will never say it, but if he goes in there and he has a great game, it will unlock a belief in himself that he would like to say he already has, but it is, there's no way it's not lingering in his mind what happened last year in the playoffs against this team. There's no way. He's been reminded of it a million times. There's no way that Mike Macdonald and this defense and this overall team, if they go in and they beat Sean McVay without, to your point, Dave, all of their players, that their standard is good enough to be the best. Like, you don't know that until you start seeing these. So I think that that's all at stake in this game, to exit it with, nobody can play with us when we choose to take the field and play our football. And
I think that Tampa Bay loss was sort of proof in that. Okay, you know, there are no moral victories in a defeat. I think there was a lot learned in that loss. They were toe-to-toe, 36 points, you know, and Mayfield was spectacular and Darnold was almost every bit as good. And I think there was a lot in that game that I think turned a switch for some of these guys. Okay, you know, and the end of it was kind of screwy, but they had a chance to go down there and win it. And I think maybe that was the first step in a defeat to develop that sort of consciousness.
So Mike and Dave, last thing, how do you see this game turning out? Like, not a prediction per se, but going into it, Mike, what's your expectation of how this game plays out?
I think that the Seahawks are kind of the hunter in this game, so to speak. I think that'll show, and that they'll probably win the game. I don't know that they'll win the rematch, right? I think this could be one of those where the rematch could be tougher than this one. But I kind of think they've got it this week. I sort of have that feel for them. I think they're, I think they're ripe for this. I think it is a big moment for them, and it's a bigger moment than it is for the Rams, is what it feels like to me. And
if they get off to a start the way they have been, that will fuel it, and I think that could snowball. In talking about the rematch, That's on a Thursday night after they have a game against Indianapolis, which turns into a real game. Coming back 4 days now, both of them are at home, but that could be the real test where, those 3 games in 10 days last year kind of doomed this team. I think they're better this year. They have a more solid foundation. They're probably better able to deal with a tough schedule like that. But that one will be a real telltale.
Worth remembering, the Rams are going to have been playing the Lions that same time when
Wow.
the Seahawks are playing the Colts, and then they're traveling up. So it's going to be a huge 4-day stretch later in the season, and it's great that we've got that to look forward to. Mike, did you have something before we let you go?
No, I think it's good. What a fun discussion. I'm really looking forward to the game.
All right. Well, amazing stuff as always. Mike, I assume you've got your pick 6. Anything else people should look forward to, videos or otherwise?
Hey, one of the things that I love to do this every year is I kind of create categories for all the quarterbacks in the league and just how your team should kind of feel about it. So there's fun ones like, our opponents hope we stay the course, would be like for Carolina or, the Jets, some of these teams like that. And so there ends up being 12 or 13 categories, but I really have fun with it every year. That published yesterday. So you can check that out. And I just have some fun with it, but it's a fun exercise. It's a good exercise too, to just kind of look at it. And I think Darnold was in a category of the, the reclamation project with the arrow up, really looking like he's going to be the franchise guy. So that's fun.
Awesome. And Mr. Boling, I know the Bulldogs have got a game tonight. Anything else from you that people should look forward to?
Yeah. No, I got, let's see, the Zags are in this Players Era tournament in Las Vegas Thanksgiving week. I'm going to go down to that. And there's, it's a situation where there's multi-million dollars to be made for the players in this tournament. And so that's drawing all the great teams. It's really changing the landscape at college basketball, and the Zags are looking so good. I'm really enjoying them as a change of pace. College hoops is really pretty fierce these days. So.
A lot of good sports here in the Northwest. Well, thank you very much. The great Dave Boling and Mike Sando. Always amazing to have you both. Have a great
And the marvelous Mike. Come on.
Marvelous Mike. Yes. The dynamic Dave and the marvelous Mike. We'll take it. All right. Have a great weekend, fellas.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right. That was Dave Boling and Mike Sando. And folks, what an absolute pleasure to have those guys with us each and every Friday. We don't always get Dave, but we get him when we can. And, two of the smartest, most connected, especially in Mike's case, journalists you're going to find out there in terms of how they cover it, and thoughtful, and they're historians as well, right? All of us that have been fans for a long time, in some ways, we're not just sports fans, we're also historians. We remember moments and people and players and coaches and owners and rivals and all those things. And the great writers like those two help contextualize all that we've seen and into words that not often other people can do. So always fun to have those guys on here. And we've got more. I'm going to talk to you for a little bit. I'll share a little bit more about what I was talking about with those guys in terms of the vibe I am getting from the team. Before we do that, let me talk about a couple of things here. One, I'm just putting this QR code up here. I'll put it back up in a little bit. I don't know if there's still spaces available, but we're doing a Real Hawk Talk live in Nashville a week from tomorrow. So Saturday night, it's going to be at this VIP lounge that overlooks the stadium in Nashville at night. It's going to be all lit up. It's going to be very, very cool. Limited spots. It's sold out in 2 days, 2+ days. So the bar found a way to allow a few more tickets to be available. You can get them now. The QR code's there, or the link's in the description of the video. I'll be there. Evan will be there. Jeff, Derek, Josh, Dana, like whole crew. So it'll be a lot of fun, and get them while you can. They might already be sold out, to be honest. I have not checked as of yesterday, but now is the time to get them. And then also, if you haven't gone over to SimplySeattle.com, use code HawkBlogger15. Great time to do it. You can get the hat I'm wearing, all sorts of great Seahawks gear there at SimplySeattle.com. And with the code HawkBlogger15, you get 15% off. So get your Seahawks gear, your Sonics gear, your Mariners gear, your Cal Raleigh got absolutely robbed MVP gear, whatever you want at SimplySeattle.com using code HawkBlogger15. Go to jkboots.com/HawkBlogger. Now is a awesome time to get a pair of boots. It's pouring outside. You can give these to somebody. You can get them for yourself. Whatever is your thing, you can do it at jkboots.com/HawkBlogger. Put that into your browser. You'll get your own special promo code that will get you a great deal on the best boots you're going to own. And then obviously it's not sleeper.com, it's the Sleeper app. The Sleeper app is where you can get all your fantasy football stuff, all your NBA info, all the stats, anything you want, all your news. Sleeper app's great. And for a limited time, $20 without even making a deposit. And if you use promo code Hawks, you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. All right. That was a lot of good stuff from those guys. And I see that we've got a super chat. I want to make sure I get to that. And that is we got a new member. Free Truth has joined as a new member. Welcome to the party. Great to have you. And as I was kind of just reflecting yesterday on talking to Devin Witherspoon, after talking to Leonard Williams, after talking to Mike Macdonald, I can't shake this feeling that this team's got a little bit of the Cheshire Cat grin, and it's not even a grin. It is this straight-faced, but I think they feel very good about their chances in this game. And they don't want to put it out there. They don't want any bulletin board material. I believe this team is set up to have a big game on Sunday. And anyone that's been following my coverage all week, it's not because I'm like, the Rams suck or they're overrated or what. It's not that. I think this team is very, very good. I think they are one of the two best teams in football this year. That's how I've seen it, watching all the different games, breaking them down. I think the Seahawks are the best team in the NFL. And I think they are ready to go show that on Sunday. And I think it's going to be defense led, but I also think Sam Darnold's going to have a big game. I think the running game might be big in this game. I think there's a lot of things to me that are pointing in advantages for the Seahawks that maybe I've been a little cautious to lean on, because look, we've kind of been in this place, or felt like we've been in this place before. And then, everyone talks about the Green Bay game last year where the Seahawks had won 4 in a row and Mike Macdonald got his defense, his personnel right, and they were playing really well. And then the Packers just kind of ran over them in the first half. And I'm aware. I certainly was taken aback by that game. It flat backed me, to be honest. I was just like, I think the Seahawks are in a position to win that game, and then they just weren't even competitive in that game. Well, I think that this is a team that is much better than the team that was playing the Packers last year. I would say I also think the Rams are a better team than the Packers. But what I'm looking at with the Rams, let me give you some specifics. The Rams are getting all this shine for their 13 personnel usage, where they have 3 tight ends on the field, and for good reason. They've been dicing teams up. Offense has been on fire with it, right? Well, primarily what they try to do is run out of that personnel package. And there's even a quote from Sean McVay this week about, there's teams that can try to go light personnel against our 13, but we're going to mash them. meaning that they're going to run the ball. Well, they run the ball 66% of the time out of that 13 personnel. And when I talk to Mike Macdonald, when I talk to Leonard Williams, when I talk to that team in general, I think they're really ready for that personnel package. And I think they're ready to play light box and ready to stop the run against it. And if you do both of those things, I think there's going to be some empty plays for the Rams where they're going to be expecting to be able to do things that they've done in the past and they're not going to be able to do. And I think that could be enough to end a couple drives for a team that doesn't get off the field very often on offense. I think that on offense, the Rams are a team that has been very good in defending the run in general. I was wrong about something. I was right that the Rams play the most dime defense in the NFL, over 10% of the snaps. I was wrong that they've been defending the run well out of that package, and credit to Mina Kimes, actually. Huge shout out to Mina and Ben Solak, who was on Mina's show previewing all the NFL games, and their preview of the Rams Seahawks game was as good as it was definitely my favorite that I've listened to. Outside of the stuff we've done on this channel, which, obviously I'm biased, but it was really good. And Mina was like, they aren't as good at defending the run out of dime. And I was like, did I get that wrong? And so I went back and looked, and sure enough, Mina was right. They allow over 5.6 yards per carry at a dime. And if they're going to try to play dime, which they want to do, they want Quentin Lake out there. They want Jalen McCullough out there. That's like one of their most advantageous personnel groupings on defense. I think the Seahawks are going to be able to run on them. The other thing that factors into this is the one I had the least comfort. I'm even uncomfortable saying it now, but you guys that have been listening for a long time know that Jared Verse for me was a draft crush. I would have been pretty much equally as excited if they drafted Jared Verse as Byron Murphy. Those were my two guys. If you have any doubts about that, go back and watch my draft coverage before, and even my reactions and talking right up until the moment that the draft picks came in. And people were like, he's overrated last year. He only had, 4 sacks or whatever. And I was like, you guys aren't paying attention. This guy is dominant. He's going to be the next defensive player of the year level. And I've been a little surprised that he has not been just absolutely killing teams in his second season. And so I went back. He has 4 sacks, which is not terrible, but Byron Murphy, who's an interior defensive tackle, has more. Byron Young, the other side, has 9 sacks for them on the Rams. And so I was like, well, I'm going to go back and watch Jared Verse against the Seahawks last year to see how they defended him. But then I was like, I want to go watch him this year. So I started watching all his pass rush snaps from this year. And the last 2 games I watched probably 70 to 80, maybe 90 pass rush snaps from him. And I watched all of the 49ers game last week. He has not yet added alternate pass rush moves. He is a power rusher and an elite power rusher. But I see a lot of him just trying to bull rush over and over and over again. And the thing that's happening now is he is getting double teamed, or he's getting chipped at the line by tight ends quite a bit. And there were just not many clear wins for him in these games the last couple of weeks. And he was a guy I probably had the biggest fear factor about going into this one, about, hey, you put Jared Verse against Anthony Bradford. That is a really tough matchup for the Seahawks. Well, they haven't really been rushing him from the inside. All his rushes are coming outside. Now they switch Young and Verse back and forth, right to left. So Abe Lucas and Charles Cross will both have to take their turns against Byron Young and Jared Verse. But they haven't really been putting him inside to rush the passer. Now, it doesn't mean they won't, but it seems unlikely, or it seems like less likely. It would break a pattern. And then Charles Cross and Abe Lucas have been doing pretty well in pass pro, generally speaking. and they'd have to hold up against power, which I think they both are reasonably good at. So I'm not sure that Jared Verse is going to be this game wrecker the way I thought he had a chance to be. And if they don't have a really dynamic pass rush against the Seahawks, good luck, and then this other aspect that's starting to be a storyline is Kobe Turner, who's their best interior pass rusher. He hasn't practiced the past 2 days. So that's like whoa. The Rams have been very fortunate in health all year long. If Kobe Turner doesn't play, that's a really big deal in this game. And add to all of that Sam Darnold is not the play. This is after I watched all the sacks last year in the playoff game. Like, all this information is kind of flowing into my brain. And it wasn't that. I mean, if Sam Darnold's getting rid of the ball in 2.6 seconds instead of 3.1, the way he was last year, then I don't know that he, I don't know that he's going to get hit that much in this game. And then add to that, you go back and you watch JSN against this Chris Shula Rams defense last year go for 180 yards receiving and should have had 250 plus yards. And I don't think their corners can stand up to JSN. And you have Rashid Shaheed, who I just keep coming with these things. And I'm like, I think I'm being too conservative. I think I am allowing the general perspective about the Rams and how good Matt Stafford is and how good Sean McVay is to over influence my perspective on this game. Now, this could all sound super silly. Maybe this will all get clipped and I'll get, just absolutely trashed for it on Monday. But as I sit here right now, I think they have the wrong team favored in this game. I expect the Seahawks to win this game. I didn't feel that necessarily 2 or 3 days ago. Usually I end up feeling a little bit more nervous as games get closer, and I'm sure I will be nervous sitting there sweating through however many layers I wear in the press box. But I mean, my job as it now stands, but also my absolute passion and obsession has been analyzing Seahawks football games. And I do it because I want to have a feeling of what I'm going to expect on, how I'm going to feel on Sunday. I'm certainly setting myself up for a big fall if things go the wrong way, because I will learn a lot if it does happen that way. I think the things that, as of right now, I expect the Seahawks to win this game, and I will not be surprised if the Seahawks win this game comfortably. And that's not because I don't respect the Rams. It's not because I think they're bad. There's a lot of things about this game that I think are setting up in the right way for the Seahawks. Sorry, I'm checking to see if there were other bits of news, because my texts were blowing up there for a second. Let me check here as we're going through. See if there's any other super chats. Not right now. Oh, there is one though. A really, really special super chat. This was such a cool idea. I'm glad I finally remembered. So Cindy Shell had a really nice question. She asked me if there was a way to get a super chat that used Venmo instead of YouTube. And I said, yeah, sure. You can Venmo me and just leave your question as a comment in Venmo. And the cool thing about this is that I get 100% of that money when you super chat, which is also awesome, by the way. 30% of that goes to Google. So if you ever want to ask a super chat and have all of what you're paying go to me instead of Google, you can just go to venmo.com and then it's /Brian-Nemhauser. If you don't want to remember all that, any of my social profiles, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, they have like a Linktree link, and there's a link to my Venmo. So you can find my Venmo there, but it's really just my name, Brian-Nemhauser. at Venmo.com. So Cindy gave me a very nice super chat over on Venmo and then asked a really, really cool question that I learned something from. So really cool, Cindy. She says, I'm curious how the Hawks skill players on offense compare to other teams in terms of blocking, particularly the Rams. Any correlation with explosive plays, rushing yards, points? Does it provide a quantifiable edge? Appreciate all you do. So I can't answer all of that because that'd probably be a full episode, but I did go and look at the blocking of some of the Seahawks skill players, and I found something that was surprising in doing that. So let me find, I've got to find where the PFF, well, there it is. Okay, I think I got it. All right. So pass blocking wise, Eric Saubert has been the third or fourth best pass blocking tight end in football. He's on IR, but he's been very good in that regard. When you get to run blocking, though, and this is where explosive plays are more likely to come up, one of the most important ways to create explosive plays in the run game is for your receivers to do a good job blocking. For years, the 49ers dominated. People talked about how good the offense was, the offensive line, Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, all that stuff. But they often would forget that they had three of the best blocking receivers in football. Brandon Ayuk is an elite run blocker. Juwan Jennings is maybe the best run blocker. And Deebo Samuel was also a very good run blocker. That keyed a lot of these explosive runs along the edge. Well, I went to look at who are the best blocking wide receivers in football this year. And guess who has the highest run blocking grade of the Seahawks receiving group? If you said Cooper Kupp, you'd be wrong. Torrey Horton has the highest run blocking grade of any Seahawks receiver, 74.2. That ranks 7th among all receivers in the NFL. I did not know that about Torrey. Now, I know that he is a good and willing blocker, but I didn't know he had been blocking that well. So that's something I totally learned and would not have known if it wasn't for Cindy's question. Right behind Torrey Horton is Cooper Kupp. So Cooper Kupp ranks 11th in the NFL among receivers in run blocking. So the Seahawks have 2 of the top 11 run blocking receivers. You don't have to go that much farther to get the next one. Jackson Smith and Jigba ranks 16th. So they have 3 of the top 16 run blocking receivers. That's pretty cool. You actually don't have to go that much farther to get another one. Cody White is 23rd in run blocking for receivers. So you've got 4 of the top 25 receivers in the NFL in run blocking on your team. As far as how it compares to the Rams, good question. Xavier Smith is a name you probably don't know from the Rams. Xavier Smith is a free agent, rookie free agent from the 2023 draft class for them. And he's a slot receiver, but he has the second best run blocking grade in the NFL. Now it's 42 snaps, which isn't a ton, but it's still meaningful. He has an 82.6 grade doing that. So that's part of why you might see Xavier Smith on the field, because he is contributing in the run game. When he's out there, they are probably more likely to be a running team or a run play than they would if he was not. Devontae Adams is their next best. He checks in at 26 with a 66 grade. And after that, you'd think Puka Nacua would be way up there. He is down at 43rd with a 62.1, which is still a good grade, but not as good of a grade as the other guys. So the Seahawks, at least so far this year, have generally had a better run blocking receiver room than the Rams have. And even better than the 49ers, who have had Juwan Jennings, but I think Juwan Jennings has been battling a lot of injuries all year, and I think that contributes to some of that. So really, really cool question from Cindy, and really nice of you to be thoughtful, considerate to use Venmo. I think I saw a question from K Nix about PayPal. You can use PayPal as well. It's just hawkblogger@gmail.com, I think, is the PayPal that you can use. But let me know if you have any questions. I really appreciate people thinking about that stuff. It's nice of you. This is how I pay the bills, and it's how I pay for guests if they need to be paid. It's how I pay for travel to get to these games. It's not cheap, and it's how I try to give you guys as good of a product as possible each and every day, pretty much 365 days a year, often more than once per day. All right. I think that will do it for this episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. This has been so fun, guys. I cannot wait for this game. Tomorrow, we are going to be coming at you with real Jeff Simmons. Should be able to do a show in the morning. I got to talk to Jeff, make sure he's available before I fly down to Monsoon, LA, who's got flooding probably. It's going to be gross. I'm so annoyed. Give me some sunshine. But we will be back with a Seahawks Saturday tomorrow. So I'll see you all then. Until then, have a great rest of your Friday. I'm Brian M. Hauser. This has been your Friday episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings.